Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Air Force Association's annual Airspace and Cyber Conference and Trade Show, leading gathering of U.S. Air Force leaders from around the world to talk about the future of the force and its strategy. Our coverage here is sponsored by Elbit Systems of America, L3 Technologies, and Leonardo DRS. And we're honored to have with us General Todd Wolters, the commander of the United States Air Force Europe. Sir, thanks very much for joining us.
Vago, always good to spend some time with you. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure. I always enjoy our conversations. I want to start with Russia's Vostok exercise, billed by the Russians as 300,000 troops on land, air, and sea. China also participating in this. Since you're somebody who spends more than a little bit of his time looking at what our Russian friends are doing, how do you interpret the exercise? You know, there's a lot of debate about whether it's puffed up. There are other people who say, look, there are some very serious capabilities being demonstrated, obviously a demonstration of how close China and Russia are becoming. Talk to us a little bit about what you see that's concerning and what you see perhaps that's not concerning.
Well, Vago, the first thing we look at is the demonstration of flexibility. And as you well know, Vostok stands for East. Previous exercises, they looked at different regions of the continent. We pay attention to the number of troops they mobilize, the number of aircraft they mobilize, how quickly they can lift and shift resources, and we obviously take a look at the command and control. And we'll continue to peek at those aspects of the exercise and draw our conclusions later. I'm here to say I'm not convinced that the numbers are actually accurate, and I will tell you as an airman what I pay closest attention to is the demonstrated command and control.
Are there any concerning features? Are there anything that you're looking at in terms of shifting and moving forces or C2 that make you think that the Russians are getting better and better at their game?
Vago, you probably know my response to this. What I'm concerned about the most is the readiness disposition of the troops that we command, not theirs. And right now, that's my largest focus. We'll continue to examine the results of their exercise, and time will tell how well it served the Russians.
Let me ask you about Trident Juncture. That's the big NATO exercise that's coming up. That's going to be something that's going to be on the northern flank. Last one was down in the Mediterranean. Talk to us a little bit about the readiness for that. What are the things that you want to see demonstrated? How are you and your forces preparing as the key and largest element of NATO forces?
Avago, we're very excited about Trident Juncture 18. We're going to focus heavily on multi-domain operations and the command and control and the command and feedback that each one of the components has. And we'll look to improve our transparency and alignment during the course of the exercise. And once the exercise is over with, we'll go back and after action review how well we commanded and controlled all of the joint fighters involved in the exercise and how well we provided feedback to the force during the course of the execution. And our goal is to continue to get better and better and better in all domains.
Let me ask you, multi-domain battle and getting back into great power competition is the theme of the conference. Obviously, Chief Goldfein, since he took office, has been focused on multi-domain command and control in battle. And in fact, you and your Army compatriot, both Ben Hodges and the current commander, have been working on increasing that sort of connectivity. Talk to us a little bit about all of the things you're doing to cross-connect air, land, space, sea, cyber, because all of this is one integrated battle space, the electronic warfare elements of this as well. Talk to us about how you're bringing all of these pieces together.
Vago, we're conditioning the force to execute multi-domain operations. The new U.S. Army European commander, actually he's been in the position for a while, Chris Cavoli, is a huge advocate of this. And we just talked about Trident Juncture 18. We will get together side by side, and we'll take a look at the air, we'll take a look at the maritime, we'll take a look at the land domain, and we'll do everything within our power during the course of exercise and training events to execute all domain operations. Doing so complicates the enemy's position against us. Doing so in exercise and training improves our muscle memory so that when we actually have to execute, we'll know exactly what to do when the time comes.
One of your premier efforts has been increasing readiness, increasing not only the readiness of your forces, but also work together with our NATO allies and partners, NATO allies, to do better. How much better are we? How much more do we have to go? I mean, how would you grade the progress that's been made so far?
I would say that the progress is improving, and our goal is a continuous, steady ramp up over time of improvement in every single one of the departments for overall readiness. That is our responsiveness, that's our resiliency, and that's our lethality. And I'm comfortable in reporting that we have that steady, smooth increase across all components, and certainly for me in the air component, we continue to see a steady improvement.
I forgot to mention or ask you about the 7-nation Clear Sky exercise that's going to be in Ukraine. That was announced today. Talk to, that's going to be in Ukraine, which is, I think, a certain message that's being delivered there, I think, not by accident. What's going to be the goal of that exercise? What are the capabilities you want to demonstrate?
Cross-domain operations, multi-domain operations, and familiarizing many of our forces in the air domain with what is unique about the region. The dialect's different, the temperatures are different, the terrain is different, the humidity in the air is different. All those small features our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines must be more and more comfortable with, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And during the course of that exercise, we'll develop a relationship with our brothers and sisters in country, and over time, that trust that improves between the two forces will certainly bolster our ability to be more effective.
When you put on your uniform, there was still a Cold War going on. A key element of that was an understanding that everybody would have to fight their way into the target, that their bases were going to be at risk, and that all logistics, munitions, and the fight had to happen in a very mobile, dynamic environment in which there was going to be combat attrition. As you look at the theater now, how is that intellectual adjustment going? I mean, you came from a generation where there was a constant, there were still, guys who did have some World War II ribbons on still at that point. There were guys who'd served in Korea and Vietnam and had to experience that contested environment. Now we've been living for 20 years in a post-Cold War era without that. How's the mental game going to get everybody ready for the kind of fight that could happen in the future?
Avago, we're just having to relearn some old lessons, and that is to demonstrate a greater degree of readiness, specifically in the area of resiliency. And with the EDI funds that help us from a U.S. perspective, we're able to take some of those resources, improve the conditions at many of the airfields that we get to work in, and demonstrate our ability to be maneuverable and agile to work from one base to the other. We did that in the past. We'll be able to do that in the future. And as soon as you're able to demonstrate to the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, the benefit that you gain for themselves and their families, the more they're on board. And we're not having any problems. We've seen dramatic improvements in our training, in the quality of our performance over the course of the last several years, and the posture has improved throughout the region, certainly for the European continent.
F-35 is the most important single program to your portfolio. Obviously, NATO members are key on that across the piece. Talk to us a little bit about, from a budgetary requirement standpoint, what are your budgetary priorities and what are your programmatic priorities? I mean, as you're working to build capability and there's been a little bit of extra money that's gone toward readiness, what are some of the specific places you want to spend the money going into the future, and what are some of your programmatic priorities?
I'll start with the fact that we want to be the most effective ready force possible. So improving readiness is critical. And when we look in the air domain about where we can pit funds to improve our readiness, we focus on indications and warnings, we focus on command and control / feedback, and we focus on mission command. And in those areas, we pit those funds to those avenues so that we can improve in all three of those critical areas the entire time, making sure that we continue to beef up our exercise and training program. And over the course of time, it'll improve our ability to execute a campaign, and it will certainly improve us in the air component, and I'm certain that I speak for my other component commanders, their readiness posture. And that's exactly what we're doing with those funds.
From an F-35 perspective, I ask you this question all the time because it is going to be the foundational combat aircraft. It will have a deterrent ability. I mean, there are those who already look at it and say it does have a certain deterrent factor to it. Talk to us a little bit about the integration efforts that are going on, because not all of our allies are on the MADL, kind of the sophisticated data link network that we've got. Some nations are on Link 16, others are on Link 11. How are you coordinating and cross-connecting these across the alliance?
Avago, the goal over time is to improve our ability to execute command and control and command and feedback. So transparency and alignment are important. So all those entities that you just addressed being on Link 16 is very, very important to all of us. We have a We have a fifth-generation integration event at least once a quarter. We have so for the last several years. We just completed one at Ramstein Air Base. I'm pleased to report that the contributions of the nations that actually possess the aircraft or will possess the aircraft has been fantastic. On top of just purely fifth generation, we're taking a look at fourth and fifth generation integration events, and we've had many of those. And I'm proud to report that over time, there's an improvement in readiness in the all domain operations, and certainly an improvement in readiness for what the F-35 can do by itself and what it can do with fourth generation aircraft.
And I have to ask you this one question. There are news reports that suggest that you're up for the commander, U.S. UCOM, the Supreme Allied Commander job. Can you make any comment on that?
Vago, I'm the commander of the United States Air Forces in Europe and Air Forces Africa. That's all I know, and I'm going to continue to wake up every morning and work as hard as I can at that job.
You are a formidable F-15C aviator. You're a four-star general. You don't spend that much time in the cockpit. But I ran into a few F-15C guys who told me, like, boy, you know, Magoo whooped us. And so apparently you were in a cockpit last year and whooped a whole bunch of junior aviators. I mean, how did that feel? I mean, I have to say, they were pretty surprised. They were like, boy, this is a four-star. He's not a frontline fighter pilot anymore. How did that go?
Vago, we pay those guys well to say those kind of things. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, they thought you did a pretty admirable job, sir. Thanks very,
sir.
very much. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise.
And look forward to coming over and seeing you guys in theater.
We look forward to more time with you.